afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Girl Get Up podcast. I am your host, the Aquarian Chancellor, and this is the podcast where I share my stories. I bring my guests on, they share their stories, all in hopes that it inspires you, the listening audience, to go out and discover your infinite possibilities. I have a guest. His name is Steve Selengut. And if I said that incorrectly, please correct me. But
No,
welcome, Steve. Please share with the audience who you are and what you do.
okay. I am Steve Selengut, just like you said, and I am at the moment I am what they call a an income coach. I
Okay.
work with people to help them make more income from their investment programs, not from their occupations. But before that, for the 40 plus years before that, I was a private investment manager, and I actually hands-on took over and managed about $110 million for people throughout the country. Um, and doing pretty much the same thing, getting them into a position where the income from their investments oftentimes outstrip the income they had gotten from their employment. I mean, enough that they didn't have to look over their shoulder and wonder where the money was coming from to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and now I'm doing it sort of on like a hand-picked
Mhm.
place where people come to me for coaching, and I show them how to alter their investments and change their strategy to generate more income.
Yeah. So I had a chance to go through your book just a little bit and see some key things that I wanted to talk to you about. But before we get there, you did actually have a career in corporate. Could you share about your journey in getting into your corporate position and then what made you transition into coaching?
Oh, okay. Well, my first job was with a corporation in New York City, and I was working in their pension investment department,
Mhm.
and I was commuting from North Jersey, Northwest Jersey, so I was on the bus every morning early for about an hour. In those days, that was back in the 60s, late 60s. So traffic wasn't quite as bad as it is now. Um, and it was a job that was interesting because it got me to go all over the country talking to um, HR people, basically, people who manage the um, savings plans and stuff like that for their employees. They didn't have 401ks in those days. They called them savings and investment plans. Some of them were profit sharing plans that I talked to. And my company was an investment manager for them. They're called institutional investment managers. I'm sure you've heard that term.
Mhm.
So my insurance company is one of the biggest insurance company institutional investors in the world. And so we were flying around. And I was flying around these the guys who actually handled the money in the programs. And I asked them a lot of questions. And I at the same time I had my own small investment portfolio, and I was applying what they did to what I did, except for two things. They had a lot of speculative, what I thought were speculative investments that, and the managers admitted that they were speculative because these are the ones that if they were lucky, um, they were able to make the market value go up, and that's what their employers and everybody wanted to see was gain in market value. And the other thing they didn't do was even when things did go up, they didn't take profits, which I couldn't understand. I said, geez, you own, in this particular instance, it was Boeing. And of course, Boeing isn't doing so well today because of all the bad press they're getting. But back in the day, they were the number one company in their field. And I said, why do you own so many millions of dollars worth of Boeing? You have all these profits. Why don't you take the profits, or at least some of them, and diversify? So they explained to me that Boeing was one of their biggest insurance clients, and they wanted them to have a large amount of their stock in their portfolios. And that was sort of like
Uh,
the bribe. If you don't have a lot of my stock in your investment portfolios, I'm going to take my insurance business elsewhere. It was one of those things. So the big light bulb went off in my head, and I said, there's an awful lot of politics going on in the stock market. What if all of the insurance companies out there are doing the same thing for all of com their customers and falsely building up the prices of these companies, not because they're so great, but because they're clients of theirs.
right.
So that's when I started taking profits. I said, at this point, that stock goes up 10%. I'm out of there. I'll find something else. So that proved to be so successful at generating income for me that within 9 years, I was making 5 times what I was making in my job in New York. And I quit and started my own business. So that was business number one. I was working for somebody else. Business number two, I was working for me. And working for me, in my mind, is the way you should go. And if you're a young person working for somebody else and it's a big company, look for a niche. Look for
Mm-hmm.
something and that's what this pension investment department job was for me. It was a niche. I mean, I could see what they were doing. I could
Mm-hmm.
see how they constructed their portfolio, how well diversified they were, and I couldn't understand why they didn't generate more income and why they didn't take profits. But the quality of what they owned and the diversification of it was fine. So I took that kind of as a model for my own portfolio. I added the profit taking and I insisted on income, and there you go. So if you in your job today can find something that that company does or something that that company puts you in charge of, that
Mm-hmm.
in itself could be its own business in the future sometime, that's where you want to be because then when you get the opportunity, when you read my book and you learn how to make money on the side and you have enough money that you're making more, then you
Yeah.
can start your own business, and do that what you've learned about. So yeah, I think there's some lessons in that, and that's what I did. And so and for selling, so I created this business that I grew to, what for a one-man show was pretty large
Mm-hmm.
portions. I shouldn't say one-man show. My wife ran the office and took care of it, and she was the highest paid employee in the company. Put it that
Yeah.
way, and deservedly so.
Yeah.
And so when we sold that business in 2023 um, for a very nice number, um, there was a couple strings attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you sell a business, there are non-compete clauses, things like that.
Yes.
They want to make sure you don't instantly go steal all your customers back and start a new business. They want to make sure that in finance, they make sure that the amount you have under management doesn't disappear, that they
Okay.
they bought this book of business from you, that it doesn't shrink, you know,
Okay.
and stuff like that. So if you're in a position where your portfolio of investments outside of your work, outside of in my case, my income generating book of business,
Mm-hmm.
if you have enough investments aside that they produce as much income as your employment used to produce, then you don't have to concern yourself lifestyle wise while you're
Mm-hmm.
waiting for them to give you the rest of your money. You, so that's those are the lessons. Each time it was just based on the same thing. I had enough to thumb my nose at my employer or at the guy who purchased my business, the company that purchased my business, and say, look, I really don't need you anymore.
Mm.
Take care of myself. And if
Yeah.
so, I guess as a life goal or a mindset, of a position you want to be in, I think that one will serve you well. If you,
Mhm.
then of course you have to learn how to invest the money.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
let's talk about that part because it's so many things and I don't even know where to start. Let's start with this. You said that your investments outside of the workplace. Could you talk about the differences of outside investments and the investments that you get in the work or that you can, like your 401k and stuff like that? What are the
oh,
differences and the positive and negatives of both? Are you ready to take control of your personal and professional journey? If you are chasing creative goals, building your dream brand, or landing that perfect job, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Need that perfect handheld accountability planner? The accountability planner for the creative woman is your ultimate companion for staying focused and turning big dreams into actionable steps. Or are you struggling to align your brand with your business goals? Well, the How to Conduct a Brand Analysis Guide breaks it all down, giving you step by step strategies to refine your brand and grow your audience. Or last but not least, for those climbing the corporate ladder, the resume toolkit gives you everything you need to craft a standout resume and land your next big role. From day one, I've always let you know that you are the star. So shop with me and take your first steps toward your brightest future. Start your journey to success today. Now, back to the episode.
well, there are, oh, geez. Okay. So if I forget to answer one of those four questions, just let me know.
Okay.
But let's talk about the 401k because as it said in the book, most of the people come into their retirement with never
Mhm.
having had any experience with investing other than a 401k.
Yep.
And some of them probably don't even know that they were invested in the stock market the whole time. They probably do because they went to the HR sessions that told them what they were doing. But that's the idea. They never actually handled it themselves or were responsible for it. And that's unfortunate. And they don't get any education in high school. I never did.
Right.
So they have to educate themselves. And books like mine, and there are many other people have written equally, I'm not going to say equally good, but similar books that educate as well
Mhm.
as try to encourage you to go into a certain direction. But you got to at least know all investing is based on either the government, the structure of governments, or the
Mhm.
structure of corporations, you know,
Mhm.
um, until you get on the personal where you're loaning money individually, one person to another, or you're financing a home by taking back the mortgages. But let's not get into that complications. But for the most part, everything you look at, everything in your 401k depends on the success of businesses, of
Yeah.
corporations, be it stocks or bonds. Bonds is the debt of corporations. They borrow money from the public and they get it in the form of bonds to help finance their operations, and they sell stock. That's how they go about starting their companies and keeping them running. And,
Mhm.
when they go out to, to put up another McDonald's store, 6 blocks away from their other one,
Right.
um, they normally will borrow money from somebody to make that investment. So,
Mhm.
so everything in your 401k depends on the economy and the success of these businesses, really. So, a lot of people don't realize how closely they are tied to the economy itself, but they are. So inside the but 401ks are designed just to grow market value. They're not designed to produce income because these
Mhm.
things are going to fluctuate in price forever. They are a great investment opportunity for employees because typically the employer will match the contributions,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's going to grow more that way. And you usually have a dozen choices of what to put your money in. And if you study those choices, you'll realize that if you want to, you can have both stocks and bonds. You can have
Hmm.
the safe bonds are safer for a strange reason. Um, and of course, governments don't sell equity securities. They don't sell stock. They sell debt, but they can print money.
Hmm.
They can raise taxes. Okay. Companies have to pay it out of income, out of what they make. All right.
Okay.
And so let's say a company gets in trouble. The way the laws are written, if a company, do you ever hear of Enron?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Enron was supposed to be this great company and it went bankrupt.
Hmm.
But when a company becomes bankrupt, the first in line to get any money that's left after they take care of they have to take their last breaths are the bondholders,
Okay.
the stockholders, the owners. Stock holding equities, stocks means you own that company, a piece of the action.
Hmm.
They get nothing. So stocks are always, no matter who sells you what or tells you what, the stock of a company is always more risky than the debt securities of that company for that very simple reason. The
Okay.
bondholders get paid first.
Okay.
So in your 401k, you're going to find two different types of securities. You're going to find
Hmm.
things that say they're high yield income or
Hmm.
just income securities, or they're going to say S&P 500 stocks or something like that, or foreign companies or whatever. The ones that say stocks in them or equities or growth are stock or are equities. They're riskier. They go with this, they run with the stock market. The other
Okay.
ones, all the other ones that are invested in income purpose securities, they're impacted most by interest rates. If
Hmm.
interest rates go up, their prices go down. Interest rates go down, their prices go up. It's that simple. It's just like the scale of justice, one goes
Yeah.
up, the other goes down. Hmm. So, so they have to know at least that little bit about it, investing. So when they see the stock market at an all-time high, like it is right now, I mean,
Hmm.
two of the indices are at an all-time high right now, and the third one is just inches away. Highest level in the history of the world.
Hmm.
Do you
And
think
so is inflation.
do you, huh?
I said, so is inflation.
Well, what inflation is and where the stock market is are two different things.
Yeah.
And inflation, in a sense, really helps. Um, a lot of companies make more money because they got a good excuse now to raise their prices, and
Hmm.
they'll have more profits, even
Hmm.
if the value of their profits is less because of the buying power. Inflation is a measure of buying power, okay, not value, really.
Hmm.
Hmm. So, um, I was somewhere there. I was trying to make a point.
Sorry, did I take you off your point?
No, yeah, when people are as old as me, they sometimes lose their train of thought. So don't, it's not your fault. It's all a matter of age. So, but if you know that the stock market at its highest level in the
Hmm.
history of the planet, isn't that a good time to sell some of that and move
Yeah.
into the safer stuff? You can
Yeah.
do, you can do that in your 401k.
Okay.
You can do that in your 401k. And so And then at the same time, if you understand that the income opportunities in your 401k will go up and down really with the expectations of where interest rates are going.
Hmm.
So they went down, for the to 2 years where we went from 0 up to 5%. They went
Okay.
down. Now they're not talking about interest rates going up anymore. Now they just took them down a little bit, and they're not even thinking about taking them back up again. And
Mm,
they probably won't, at least until after November, even talk about that kind of stuff. So the idea of moving that money from where you're at its highest level ever to an area where prices are probably going to go up because the expectations are that interests are going to go down.
mhm,
And even if we have a crash in the market, that's gonna hold true because as long as interest rates aren't, they don't use, they'll only use lower interest rates to fix an economy that they think's gone down,
mhm,
and that's what will bring the market down. So that's what I'm saying. And then when interest rates get really, really low, like they were at zero, that's when you take the money out of that. You take your profits in that and you move some of it back into the stock market. So you can you can invest your 401k dollars. You can't do it every day.
right.
You can't physically take profits and put them in your pocket, but you can move your money according to where you see either the stock market cycle or the interest rate cycle is going. And I address the cyclical nature of the markets in the book, as you saw. So,
Yeah.
so for people who aren't there yet, the only money
Mhm,
they have is what they've been putting into that 401k. They can still invest, learn about it, think about it, and take advantage of the changes in the environment,
mhm,
just like I can with individual securities. Like think of my investment portfolio is my 401k. It's my
mhm.
personal little 401k, that I manage. I think I answered your question.
Yeah. So then that said, we know that, we have the investment on the job, but then when you get that paycheck and you want to have your own individual um
Yeah,
investment, I
right.
think.
Yeah. Your own personal portfolio and that it's your job to maintain and grow all by
Mhm.
yourself. That takes guts.
I'm glad you said that because let's start with what is a portfolio? What does it consist of? And how can one go about creating one for themselves?
I would say, like anything else you try to do. I mean, you can't just go out and change a tire.
Mhm.
You got to look at it. You got to understand it. Somebody's got to tell you, yeah, you got to have it on the ground to loosen up the nuts first before you lift the tire up. You got to learn the basics. And investing is just like that. You got to understand the risks involved uh, with different types of investing. You can't just listen to the media and the hype. You can't go out and buy crypto because it's so popular. You don't even understand what it is. It doesn't pay any income.
Mm,
It's pure risk. Its volatility isn't associated with economic circumstances. It's what, who knows? I've never owned any of it, and I've managed
mhm,
millions and millions of dollars. Um, so you got to look at basics, fundamentals. You got to learn what the fundamentals are.
mhm.
You got to get a broker you can trust too. You know.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was another one of my questions.
Oh man, there's so much. Really, there's so much. But I would say before you even get started, education. Even
Yeah,
if you go a simple route of Google, what's a stock? What's a bond? You
yeah.
know. And there are lots. I'm sure there are a lot of tutorials about investing that you can do before you go out and make a decision. But if you're really just starting out and this is the first chunk of money you're putting in there, there's
Mhm,
some basic things you got to know. Anytime you buy a share in an individual company, you're an owner and you're bearing the risk of that company. Most companies that are established and well known and which pay dividends have a pretty high share price associated with them. So the amount you
mhm,
can buy with your first $1,000 is limited, you know?
mm,
So there are three types of funds that you can use to literally own every stock that's out there.
Mm,
Every type of bond and fixed income securities that's out there, you can buy in the form of a professionally managed fund that is really very, very cheap. You don't have to pay a thing. The fees are taken out from the fund, but they're not taken out from your account, you
mhm,
see. And the income that you get from them is yours, and it can be
mhm.
reinvested, just like a bank savings account,
Yeah,
but not guaranteed. So there are three of these types of funds. The most familiar one to most people would be the mutual fund.
yeah.
Okay. And a mutual fund, like I said, contains, depending on what its name is, it pretty much tells you what's inside, tells you what kind of securities are inside, and you can Google them and find out what the risk is like.
Mhm,
But if they're in the stock market, where most young people want to go, because
mhm,
it's exciting, um, um, it'll tell you how many stocks are inside and what kind of stocks they are. If they're dividend paying, big board Dow Jones 40 type companies or whatever, or it'll say pretty much if it's risky, you know.
mhm,
So I would advise to go to the safest ones first. You don't want to lose your first thousand. You don't want to just, it's gone. And I would also say that somebody should start with income security because they're safer
mhm,
and they can build a base more quickly and more easily than taking the risks associated with stocks. But funds are less risky than individual stocks. Mutual funds are fine. They're well respected. There's lots of really good companies and so on. The income they pay is not particularly great, but you can
mhm.
find some that pay more than others, and I would say that they would be the safer ones if they're paying more income. The same with ETFs, which is another form of
I've
fund.
heard of ETFs, yeah.
And ETFs are similar. They're a little bit more volatile,
Mhm,
I think, than the regular mutual funds. They don't, ETFs trade daily on the market. You can buy them and sell them the same day if you want to, you know, but you can buy them and own them immediately. Mutual funds, you buy them and you get them the next day. They wait until the price is determined at the end of the day, and then that's what you get them for in the morning the next day. So ETFs pay even less than mutual funds. They're by definition, the majority of them are what they call passively managed, which is really not managed at all, you know, so that they're very cheap. Um, they don't charge a lot internally. You don't pay either way. Um, and they some of them pay very little dividends, some of them pay a lot, but the ones that pay a lot are usually more risky
mhm.
with what's inside. Then there's the oldest form of fund, which is the closed-end fund, and
Okay.
that's really a trust vehicle, and
Oh,
it's the oldest form of investment fund there is. It was developed in the early 1800s, and the mutual fund was about 30 years later.
okay.
ETFs have only been around for about 25 years.
Okay. Now, what did you say that last one was again?
Closed-end fund. Those are the ones that I'm talking about in my book, CEFs.
CEFs. Okay.
And they are similar to the other funds. They own the same things as the securities. They're actively managed, but and like I said, they're trust vehicles. So every penny they make, they have to pay 95% of that to their owners, the shareholders,
Hmm.
you and me, which is unique. It's different
Hmm.
and it's really, really nice because
Okay.
because right now they're paying like 9 and 10%,
Hmm.
which is very, very nice.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they trade daily on the markets. Okay. They all right, so they're different in one other way. When market values change every day, the prices of the other two, ETFs and mutual funds, are tied to the value of the securities inside the fund.
Okay.
So it's called the net asset value.
Hmm.
So every day they either add more shares to or take shares out of the market or put them in to make the net asset value equal to the share value. So
Okay.
it's complicated, but that's basically what it is. They always trade at their net asset value. Closed-end funds are more like stocks themselves.
Mm.
Their price is totally a function of supply and demand. So if you have let's say a healthcare closed-end fund and something big happens, something's invented, and all the healthcare stocks go up and up and up, so is your price is going up. Your
Mm.
healthcare fund will probably go up too, but that price will not be a function of the assets inside. Nothing's going to tie it to. So it could go higher or it could not go as high as the value of the
Okay.
the thing trade. It can trade either above or below its net asset value. It almost never will be at its net asset value. But let me tell you one thing. A stock that you buy, if you were to buy General Motors,
Mm-hmm.
price you pay will have absolutely nothing to do with its net asset value or book value, is what they call a company. A company like Nvidia is probably trading for 30 or 40 times more than its actual asset value because it's
Okay.
so popular, you know, and that's the big distinction.
Mm.
The price of the closed-end fund is not tied to net asset value, and the others are. So there's a distinct difference there, and also the fact that they pay out 95% of their earnings. So they're very, very much more attractive to me than the other forms. But these, so those things are available. Back to that first $1,000 that you have to invest from your
Uh-huh.
employer, you can buy 100 shares of maybe 50 different funds, not all at the same time, but there are at least 50 different funds that are less than $10 a share. You could buy 100 shares of them. You know, you can get more shares, so you have more opportunity for profits more quickly of some substance as you get started, and you can diversify. You're instantly diversified in any of those funds. You're diversified right away.
Okay. Yeah.
So for younger people, it's a much better idea than you're not going to find, when new companies come to market,
Mm-hmm.
only about 1 in 100 is as successful as a Microsoft or a Nvidia or a Google or something like that. Most new companies don't make it.
Mm. Yeah, you hear that a lot.
So it's much more risky. So if you're just starting out, I suggest that you go into a thing called CEF Connect, Closed End Fund Connect,
Mm-hmm.
and study. And they have tutorials there that tell you about what these things are.
Okay,
But
that's good to know.
but there are hundreds of them you can look inside, see how they pay their distributions, look at their price movements, and so on. But look at the ones that are based on income securities, the safer securities. So you start in a place that's less, and these things don't go out of business, because they own, so many different securities that an awful lot of bad has to happen before they're going to go under, so they're
Yeah.
safer in that sense. So that's where I would start if I was telling somebody, if I was going to tell my grandchild how to do something with with their newfound wealth, that's what I would tell them to do.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah. But it is a lot. And it's just like anything else in life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do anything in any profession, you're going to have to learn a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're going to take care of your money better than the banker will, or as good as or better than an investment advisor might, then you better do your homework and learn about what you're doing, because otherwise you're
Yeah.
going to fall flat on your face, just like you will with an employer if you don't know what they're all about. And
Yeah.
nothing in life is really easy. But with enough effort, it becomes easy.
Takes work. You said something so key. You said that first $1,000 that you might get from your paycheck. So now, I talk a lot, or I've had people on my show talk about budgeting and how to manage their home expenses and that type of thing. What ratio would you recommend for people to take what you have from your check and invest it?
That's so hard, you know? And where's your comfort level? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's you're not going to instantly be able to go out and start an investment program. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're really your best bet is to go into whatever your employer offers you and
Mm-hmm.
do that. Um, and if you can do as much as he says he'll match,
Mm-hmm.
at least do that much. Um, for me, if you're, let's say this is your third job and it's a new 401k plan you're going into or something like that, and you have once you have some investment experience and you know what you're doing, then I would only put as much as the matching part of it, and only
Okay.
that because I want control over the rest of it. I can
Okay.
I can invest it myself, right? So once you get to that point, but for the initially, take advantage of whatever you can in your 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Get that to a level first bef- while you go out and do some online courses on investing. Do
Okay.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you'll never find an online course, at least I don't think so, on closed-end fund investing. So you have to look around and find that, or find a coach that'll show you about that.
Mm,
You know,
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. What are some attainable goals that everyone can do now, like the average person, to start creating that financial or investment portfolio?
it's what can you do? You have to make yourself do it. You just have to, like I said, it all starts with some education.
Yeah,
Read a,
that's the first
read
step.
a good book, and you know which one I have in mind,
Hmm.
Retirement Money Secrets, and start doing take a consistent approach and set um, fundamental requirements about what you invest in. It's got to have been around for a significant period of time. It's got to be diversified. It's got to have, in my case, I won't buy any closed-end fund that has less than 50 different positions in it. Like think of that. That's 50 different stocks all at once, and then I'll buy several of them they each have their own different diversification. So the quality, set up rules about the quality. Like
Hmm.
I said, it's been in business a long time. It's got it. It's diversified itself. It gives you income. I wouldn't ever buy anything that doesn't pay me some form of income, be it interest or dividends. So you determine the quality, and then the next step is to diversify. Don't throw it all into that same thing. Never hit the button where it says automatically reinvested dividends. You don't want to do that.
Do that.
You want to take that money, you want to make another investment decision with that money and any other money you add to your portfolio. So diversify is, you know, very, very important because that even though these funds are less risky than individual securities, the more of them you have, the more diversified you are. And
Mhm.
you can't be too diverse in my mind. And then the third thing, make sure you get paid. Make sure the income is coming in. So quality, diversification, and income.
Mm.
And then the fourth thing that you have to do is when you see that thing going up that you bought, just remember that the market always goes up and then it goes down, up and down, up and down. So when that thing set a target on a profit that you think is reasonable.
Okay.
I use 5%. So if it gets to 5%, take the profit. Do not fall in love with the security.
Okay. When you say don't fall in love with the security, don't fall in love with that number because it's gonna go down.
Don't think you're a genius. You just discovered the holy grail. This thing is going to go up forever, particularly in a fund,
Right.
because it's got so many things inside. They're all not going to continue to go up forever
Mhm.
anyway. So whatever you invest in, set a target for your profit. It's just like you're starting your own little store here. Okay.
Okay.
And in your store, you're going to have 100 shares of this and a couple of shares of that and a few shares of this and some shares of that. And just like you would in a store, you'd mark it up to a certain amount. And if somebody came in to buy it, you'd sell it.
Hmm.
And that's what you're doing. You're having these things, they're in your store. They're just inventory. And if one of them goes up in price, that means somebody's willing to pay that much money.
Right.
Sell it to them, find another thing to put in your store. You might even go back and buy that same thing again and sell it again. I mean, that's what the stores do, right? They fill their inventory back up.
They do.
They sell some Levi's jeans, they buy some more, and they sell them again. So that's how you have to approach it. You can't fall in love with it, or you can't think that this one's going to make me rich. That's very rare.
Yeah.
It does
It's
happen, and all the stories are always about those situations.
yeah.
But you can buy an Exxon, and if you go back and look at the chart of Exxon, you see how it went up and down. You could have bought that 1,000 times, taken a 10% profit on it 1,000 times, and still own it at that higher price level.
Mm.
And you make more money that way than you do if you just held it forever.
Yeah. Um, how do you manage on a day-to-day to make sure that you're keeping a healthy eye on what you've invested in and whether it's producing the yield, the high yield, I guess, if I'm using this term
Yeah, you are.
that that you're looking for. Like it sounds like it's a full-time job.
Well, it's not a full-time job if those four things I just mentioned,
Mm,
if you always are buying the quality stuff,
qualities. Hmm.
you really don't have to keep your eye on it as closely as if you're taking speculations and you
Yeah.
say, "Oh man, this one's going to be hot. I'm gonna watch it." Or you go out and buy penny stocks and things like
Mm,
that. Yeah, I
mm,
mean those things, who knows what's going to happen. But if you
yeah.
buy a company that's been around for 30 years or 130 years and they're
Hmm.
paying a dividend, there's a good chance that you don't have to keep your eye on them. They're taking care of that themselves. They're
Hmm.
taking care of business. So you stick with quality investments
Hmm.
that are paying you income, which is another test of their quality. If they're making enough to send you money, then they must be making enough money, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and then you look at them occasionally to see if there's a profit there available, and
Mm,
you make sure you own a lot of different ones. And we're starting, and you start your investment career with funds. So you don't have that individual risk of all of a sudden they can't find anything more to make those batteries for the electric cars for, all of a sudden,
okay.
that happens, or, there's, just crazy things that could happen in the economy that could kill one business, but not all business. A law changes, and
Yeah.
all of
You
a
know what
sudden
came
this
to my
guy's out of
mind?
business.
The
You just
port situation just came to my mind when you said that.
which one?
The ports,
Oh
the
yeah, the port. Yeah, all of a sudden, all
mhm.
those shipping companies are
Yeah.
probably taking a hit just in anticipation that the strike would really happen.
Mhm.
You know, but now they should probably think, well, maybe we should get out of them anyway because their costs of doing business are going to go up by so much that they're not going to be quite as profitable anymore either.
Yeah.
So there's a couple ways of looking at the pros and cons of the settlement. You know, so you don't want to be. I don't want to be an individual where individual securities are going to have that big of an impact.
Mhm.
You can buy if you really say, well, I really want to be in AI,
Mhm.
because we
Yeah.
know that there's an industry that's probably in its early stages of
Mhm.
up. you buy a fund that specializes in AI so you don't have to try to pick a winner.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing. So, yeah, education and making sure you do those four things, the quality, diversification, income coming in, and taking your profits.
Yep.
Making sure it's always a department store. Those are really that's all you really need to do. And you'll
Mm.
get there.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
you're just getting started, safety is the only important word.
Thank you for sharing that. Now are you still coaching and you
Oh
still
yeah.
do
Yeah, I'm
individual?
still I'm
Okay.
still doing coaching.
So now is the time to talk about your services and the products. I know you have a book out, so now's the floor. Open up the floor to you to talk about all of those things and how people can reach out to you.
Well, there's the book, right? You got it?
Yes, I got it.
That's the book. And it's at Retirement Money Secrets. It's at every place you can buy books. The ebook places like Draft to Digital and the regular brick and mortar stores, you can order it. And Amazon, of course, is the biggest. Uh, there's an Audible book, so
Mhm.
you can listen to it on your radio or whatever. You just
Okay.
that's only available through Amazon. They have the exclusive to that. And my coaching business is theincomecoach.net.
Okay.
And all of what I do, the types of services I provide, are described there.
Yeah. Okay.
A, a $10 investment in the ebook, Retirement
Mm-hmm.
Money Secrets, will go a long way. It'll tell you what the questions are to ask. You'll
Okay.
know. You'll learn.
Okay. Well, perfect. Well, we're going to send them over your way.
Okay.
Before I let you go, this is a platform of inspiring people to believe in their infinite possibilities. Could you please share your motivational message to help others along their journey?
Oh boy, my motivational message. It's really one that, it's really in your hands. I mean,
Mm.
it's not going to be given to you. It's not going to just be handed to you. But if you take your hands and your mind and you put them to work for you productively, you'll get to where you want to go.
Mm. It's all in your hands. Well, that's it, everybody. Thank you, Steve, for joining me. You hang on. I'm going to send you off the right way. But everyone else, take care. Have a great day.